Hey Frag fam, what is going on? I hope you guys are all doing well today. Elliot here and welcome back to the Fragrance Well. So, tobacco and leather is going to be the focus of today's video, but with a little bit of a backstory. So I have some family in town, which includes my father. He actually got to go to a cigar event held at one of my Corona cigars, local Corona cigar places here. And unfortunately, I didn't get to go because I had to go out of town for work, so I did miss quite an experience there. But my wife actually texted me the day he was supposed to go and asked him, what's some fragrance suggestions you have for my dad to wear once he goes to this event. So my wheels start turning. I start naming a couple of things, and these are things that I would consider wearing to a cigar lounge or cigar lounge event. And that got me to thinking, why don't I just make a video kind of centered around that? So this is a fragrance video that is basically an ode to tobacco and leather fragrances with a slight emphasis on if you were going to go to cigar related events, maybe these are some scents you could wear. So I know not everybody's necessarily into that. Full transparency. It's not even necessarily a hobby of mine. It's a hobby I wouldn't mind having, but it is not something I do on a regular basis right now. That being said, I have been to very nice high-end cigar places. I have hung out at them. I know what that environment entails, and I know fragrances I would wear there. So with all that being said, that's what's going to be featured in this video today. So we got 10 of them to feature. 5 of them are more tobacco-centered. 5 of them are more leather-centered. And if you haven't put 2 and 2 together, tobacco and leather are great notes I think could go well or pair well with a cigar-related environment. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into it. But before we do, as always, please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you do like the content, and please hit that bell icon and enable notifications so you can be notified when I upload new videos. And as always, I will leave links to these fragrances featured in the video down in the description below. Let's get into it. All right, guys, we're going to kick it off with one from Day 3 Fragrances, and it's going to be Filosofia. Day 3 Fragrances, Filosofia. So this is one of the recommendations I gave my dad for the event. As far as I know, this is what he ended up going with. Great choice. Honestly, it would have been one of my first considerations. So this is a tobacco fragrance. By the way, we're doing the tobacco fragrances first. So yes, this one is tobacco. Think really smooth cigar with some chocolate and nutty notes, a very warm, embracing kind of vibe to this scent. There's a little bit of spice to it as well. I think of smoking cigars with family members, whether it be my dad or my brothers or both of them, or all of them, should I say. I got multiple brothers. This fragrance makes me think of that. I think that was part of the inspiration for the scent in general. I think that is achieved through this scent. It has a weird way of being calming and relaxing and very, very chill, which is not something I often think about as it relates to tobacco fragrances. That being said, I'm pretty sure this fragrance worked out well for him. I didn't really ask. I mean, he was there for the event per se, not to show off a fragrance. But that being said, yes, I think this fragrance would have definitely been a top choice for me, especially if I was able to go with my father, because I mentioned that family element I kind of get from this scent. So this would have been a top choice for me, and I'm sure it worked out well for him. So once again, from Day 3 Fragrances, this is Filosofia. All right, guys, next one's going to be coming from Le Labo, and this is Tabac 28. Le Labo, Tabac 28. This is another one I recommended my wife show my father. However, I think she forgot to show him this one, so I don't know how he would have felt about this. But let's just put it this way. If he had chose to wear Filosofia, I probably would have just gone with this one. This one here doesn't really give me that family vibe, but it is a great tobacco scent that features more boozy notes, which if you go to a really nice cigar lounge, there's going to be top shelf booze there, naturally, right? These are two things that are often paired together. Matter of fact, the event was a tobacco and Scotch event, Vanille Scotch in particular. So, that's like a match made in heaven, good cigar, Vanille Scotch. If you know, you know. All right, so this one here, now, it's not Scotch liquor. It's more rum-like liquor in this. It is like rum-soaked tobacco leaves with luxurious woody notes, a little bit of spice in the form of cardamom. There's some smoky elements to add a little bit more grit to the tobacco in this scent. It smells regal. It smells like a businessman is celebrating a successful quarter or something like that. at a cigar lounge. That's the vibe I get from this fragrance. That was always the picture that was painted in my mind when I first smelled this fragrance, and that vibe remains to this day. And besides all of that, it's just a great tobacco fragrance with some boozy notes, and it's something I would have no problem wearing to a cigar lounge. So once again, from Le Labo, this is Tabac 28. All right, guys, we're going to move on to one from Amouage. This is Journeyman. Amouage Journeyman. Now, I already know there are some people out there thinking, like, what about Royal Tobacco? Royal Tobacco would probably be a great choice for this list, but I don't own it, so I can't feature it. And look, it's a great scent. I've gotten my nose on it. I think it's awesome, but I've never felt like I just had to get it immediately. I probably will one day. We'll see. But anyway, Journeyman is a great one as well. Think of this as more aggressive than the previous two, but nowhere near as aggressive as Royal Tobacco. This one is inundated with very alluring, attractive spice. Think that cinnamon, peppery, cardamom-like spice that has that allure factor. Something Royal Tobacco doesn't necessarily have, but I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying it's a different style. The tobacco in here, a little bit cleaner, a dash of sweetness in there. Does have kind of a sparkly, smoky facet, if you know what I mean. And when I say sparkly, smoky, if you ever smelled like a smoky tobacco in a fragrance, but it has all these really nice spices to it, it gives it this weird sparkly texture. I don't know how else to describe it. That's just how it is in this scent. But this one, again, a little bit more aggressive than the last two, but still has this really high likability factor, which is something you can't go wrong with. And on top of that, it's just an awesome, underrated fragrance from Amouage, in my opinion. Once again, this one here is Journeyman. All right, guys, next one's going to be coming from Tom Ford. This is Tobacco Oud. Tom Ford Tobacco Oud. So I would say maybe equal level of aggressive in terms of the tobacco in this compared to Journeyman, but overall much darker tone. Doesn't quite have that alluring spice quality to it. That being said, really nice spicy profile in this. This one is also a little bit boozy, more of a whiskey direction in this one. And there's a little bit of an aggressive tone with this scent when you first spray it on. Now, it does like to settle. I believe there's like a patchouli sandalwood combination, which is to die for once this fragrance really kind of settles on the skin. The oud in here, it is a westernized oud. I think people have said, this fragrance can be kind of rough for some people. I really don't think it's the oud that's doing it. I think it's this aggressive take on the whiskey booziness along with the kind of ashy tobacco that this scent has. The oud facet is in here just to kind of add another layer of depth. I don't even know if it is real oud, but whatever. It is what it is. Who cares? I think the scent smells great. Not for everyone. That being said, scents like this I think are made for these type of events. This is a very masculine scent DNA in my opinion. And, for me at least, when I think about cigar lounges, that is primarily a masculine hobby, a masculine activity. Women do go to these events. Women do smoke cigars, all right? But come on, it's overwhelmingly men that are going to these events. As far as I know, the event my father went to, it was all guys that went to the event. So once again, coming from Tom Ford, this is Tobacco Oud. All right, guys, last tobacco fragrance also coming from Tom Ford. This one is Tobacco Vanille. Tom Ford Tobacco Vanille. I really didn't want to put two Tom Ford fragrances in the video, but when I was kind of looking at some of my other tobacco options and what I ultimately was going to go for, I said, you know what, let's just go with Tobacco Vanille, man. I think it kind of edges out the other ones that have a similar style. So I wanted to feature a tobacco fragrance that does push the sweetness a little bit in terms of the scent style. So you've got spice in here for sure, a really nice dried fruit kind of character to this scent that adds just another layer of awesomeness to this legendary fragrance. The tobacco in here is a little bit dirty, but it's not overly aggressive. And of course, you've got this, statement making vanillic facet to this fragrance that everybody, loves. So this fragrance here gives me the sweeter take on the tobacco. I was thinking of one in particular, but I said, nah, I like this one better. So let me just go with what I think is the better choice. But again, if you want to wear a tobacco DNA to something like this, or just in general, because I did mention that, I'm talking about the cigar lounge, but This could just be the love of tobacco fragrances in general. And you want to go the sweeter route, which these fragrances do exist. I think this is one of the best to ever do it. I'm not saying it's the best one ever, but I don't think it could be understated the impact of a fragrance like Tobacco Vanille, particularly in what many would consider the golden years of Tom Ford. So once again, from Tom Ford, this one here is Tobacco Vanille. All right, guys, second half of the video where we're going to feature some leather fragrances. So the first one's coming from Savoir Faire. This is the Whiskey Rose. Savoir Faire, the Whiskey Rose. And you're probably looking at the name and saying like, what do you mean leather? That says whiskey and rose. That smells like those things, right? Yes, it does. But it is supported with a very nice leathery undertone with some luxurious woody facets, woody and resinous facets to it. So yes, you definitely get what I would call whiskey soaked rose petals in this fragrance. It's definitely boozy, rose in here, very opulent, a touch kind of fruity, but also fresh at the same time, not too jammy, if you will. And again, yeah, you got suede, smooth suede like leathery notes in this that kind of becomes the grounding for that whiskey and that rose that this fragrance has. And then again, it has luxurious woods with some resins in it as well. Smells really, really great. Now, I typically consider this kind of a date night scent, but let's just say I wanted to wear it to a cigar lounge and I wanted to have something that's not smoky because you don't always have to, wear something smoky to a place where it's going to be smoky. If anything, that asset might be lost in the environment that you're going to. But again, we're not just focusing on the cigar lounge. This is for the love of tobacco fragrances and leather fragrances. So I'm just simply pointing out some of the uses for this. But again, if I were going to a cigar lounge and I wanted to contrast some of those smells, but I still wanted to come off with, more of a masculine take, this fragrance here is perfect for that. It's luxurious. I guarantee you nobody's going to be smelling like this. And I like leather as a contrast to the overall tobacco smell you're obviously going to get at a cigar lounge. So once again, from Savoir Faire, this is the Whiskey Rose. All right, guys, next one's going to be coming from Iommi Good Sir. This is Cuir Velours. Iommi Good Sir, Cuir Velours. All right, so this one here actually does have, if I'm not mistaken, a listed note of tobacco, but this is a leather fragrance. I could understand people maybe picking up some tobacco nuance from this scent, but I've never really considered this a fragrance I would call a tobacco scent. But anyway, the name Cuir, which is French for leather, does highlight the fact that this is primarily a leather fragrance. It is too. It is so smooth and so rich. It's accompanied with also some boozy notes, this kind of honeyed like sweetness to it, some resinous notes. It's a little bit sweet as well. This one here is beautiful. And again, this one here, I think, gives you a really nice contrast to the environment of the cigar lounge, if that's what you're using it for. But just think about, night out events where, tobacco and leathers can work. This one is right there at the top of the list as far as I'm concerned. A very luxurious, opulent, very rich and delicious take on a leather fragrance. I love this scent. So once again, from Iommi Good Sir, this is Cuir Velours. All right, next one's going to be coming from Francesca Bianchi. This is Sticky Fingers. Francesca Bianchi, Sticky Fingers. So this one here has some leathery notes, but I think the highlight of the scent is more so like orris and spices and some resins as well. But it does have this smooth suede-like undertone to it that makes me put it into the leather category, but in a very different way. Leather and iris is not something that's foreign to the fragrance world, if you will. Matter of fact, I would say there's fragrances out there that are much more blatant in that combination, but I like the way this one takes a different spin on it, at least in my opinion. The way the spices come together, this fragrance has this kind of powdery, dusty feel. Maybe not so much powdery, but more dusty feel to it. And again, it's not really iris, it's more so orris butter, so it's very savory and rich. And the leather nuance in this fragrance is just so freaking smooth, kind of clean in a weird way. This is a very interesting scent. Out of the richer, darker fragrances from Francesca Bianchi, I think this is one of the more wearable ones, while still kind of keeping that just pushing the boundaries, super niche approach to fragrances that a lot of Francesca Bianchi fragrances have. So this one here, I think can absolutely work in a cigar lounge vibe as well as just a night out vibe in general, and also gives me that good contrast away from the smokiness you're going to get in a cigar lounge. So once again, from Francesca Bianchi, this is Sticky Fingers. Okay, moving on. Next one's going to be coming from Xerjoff, and this is Tony Iommi Deified. Xerjoff, Tony Iommi Deified. So this one here, primary things you're getting from this is you are getting some spice. Think like saffron, like spice, with rose, patchouli, and you guessed it, leather. There's some other facets to this scent, but those are like the primary things you get from it. Particularly the rose, patchouli, and the leather. I don't even really think too much about the spice, even though you can't deny that it's here. But anyway, all that being said, this one here, a little bit more of an aggressive scent DNA overall. I would say I'm kind of looking at what I've talked about in terms of the leather so far. I haven't really featured a lot of super strong ones. Well, this one is. This one here is powerful, which I guess is something you could consider in a cigar lounge. If you got a fragrance in a cigar lounge that, you know, doesn't necessarily have that reach out and touch capability, that push off the skin, you may have to spray it a little bit heavy to cut through all that smoke, at least present yourself in a way that someone actually has a chance to smell you. With this one, you may not necessarily have to worry about that. You could actually go lighter on the sprays and it'll still cut through some of that smoke. It will be fighting against it, but it will cut through it because this fragrance has some push. So I already kind of described what it is. Definitely doesn't have a smoky facet to it. There's no tobacco-like notes in this, so you will definitely contrast yourself with that smoky environment. But what I think is special about this scent, I actually think it would pair well in an environment like a cigar lounge when you're smelling that tobacco smoke in there. Now, I haven't tested that. I just have a theory. I'm just using educated guessing skills, if you will, to see. And one day I might actually check that out to see if that actually works. So once again, from Xerjoff, this is Tony Iommi Deified. All right, guys, last but certainly not least, coming from Dior, we have got Fahrenheit Parfum. Dior Fahrenheit Parfum. All right, so if you're familiar with the Fahrenheit DNA, leather was one of the main notes you got from it. The Parfum also features that leather. I would say the leathery facet is, you could say maybe it's a little bit smoother than the EDT. You still got spices, the spicy lavender combination that you get from this scent. You also got like loads of warm vanilla and some boozy notes in the Parfum compared to the EDT, but you still got the violet leaf. You still got the leather, violet leaf leather combination. Overall, it doesn't really quite have that petrol vibe that you get from the EDT, and it's been turned way down in this version of the Fahrenheit DNA. This one does have a woody base to it. It is a touch smoky. I don't really get much of a tobacco essence from this, and I don't think it's so smoky that, you know, you're just accentuating the smoke in a cigar lounge environment. But again, you could obviously use this scent in many other cases other than a cigar lounge, so that's not like a deal breaker for the fragrance, but I do think this one does have enough contrast to pair well with that environment. It's definitely masculine in my opinion. Again, I see the cigar lounge as a masculine area. And on top of that, I think this is overall a great leather-based fragrance DNA. So once again from Dior, this is Fahrenheit Parfum. All right, guys, that is going to wrap it up for this video. If you would like to, let me know down in the comments below. Are you a fan of leather and tobacco fragrances? If so, list some of your favorites down in the comments. And if you do happen to partake in the cigar lifestyle, cigar hobby, and you like to, you know, think about fragrances that pair well with those type of environments or events, put those down in the comments below. Again, that's not something I do on a regular basis, but I kind of understand the environment, so I have fragrances I would wear for that. But I would love to see what you guys have to say if you are into that hobby. So thanks again for watching all the way into the end. I really do appreciate you guys. Please remember to be well and smell well, and I will see you in the next episode of The Fragrance Well. Have a good one.